Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So thanks again, everybody, for joining today's session. It's Report Designer in FSM. Please be aware the session is being recorded. Quick reminder before we get started, please use the chat feature to ask any questions throughout the presentation, and we will be sure to address them. A copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be sent to all registrants. If you're not a registrant and you would like a copy, please send me an email and I will include you on the distribution. I will drop my email into the chat, but it is molly.velasco@nordicglobal.com. Next slide, please. Just a quick reminder that Bales is now Nordic. As many of you know, Nordic Consulting acquired Bales a little over 2 years ago. So just a reminder that we continue to do the great Infor ERP work that we've been known for, and you'll see all the same familiar faces. We're just operating under the Nordic brand moving forward. So with that quick reminder, I will turn it over to John Simpson, who is our presenter for today.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is John Simpson. I'm one of the principal consultants with Nordic ERP services. I've been in finance over 20 years, probably well over 20 years at this point. Doing both finance as a client, also doing consulting. I've worked in a few different industries as both a finance person and also a consultant as well. I'm certified in the Infor product suite. Just happy to be here to go over the new reporting solution that is just rolled out, called Infor Report Designer. So welcome, everybody. Just a little disclaimer. So any of the information provided here for relating to implementing and upgrading Infor and Cloud Suite, this information is just for information purposes. I wouldn't go and build an entire system on this particular on the discussions here. Really, what I would do is reach out to one of us, and have a discussion with us. We don't make any representations or warranties of any kind expressed and implied about the accuracy, reliability, or availability with respect to the information. So anything you do, is your own risk. So just a little disclaimer. So just on this particular thing. So Report Designer, we're going to handle this in 5 parts. I want to go through a high-level overview of Report Designer first. I want to talk a little bit about activating it, because while it is part of your suite of stuff, you do have to go and actually go through a process to activate Report Designer in FSM and to give you the ability to use it. We'll go through the building of a report, Report Designer report. They are very easy to build, and there's really 3 big parts to it, which we'll discuss a little bit later. We'll talk about running a report and different options for that. And I'll stop a little time at the end and talk about a little bit about some upcoming updates and resources. So it's Friday, sorry, a little bit. I've been talking all week. So we'll go through some updates that are coming up, big one coming up in October, as well as a resource or two that I found very helpful that Infor is providing. So as we said, this is the new tool for functional financials users. So a general overview, Report Designer, basically it's designed to give users another tool, like a finance person, maybe even a non-technical finance person, the ability to pull together an ad hoc report quickly, directly out of FSM. You can be able to run your rep sets and get that data out of the system. It just is a quick and easy way of creating some ad hoc reports. It's a little closer, but not identical to kind of the RW reports where you can build things and use the level groups and things like that, and like you used to. Kind of a similar concept in that respect here. It uses existing FSM hierarchies and dimensions and charts of accounts to build the reports. So in the same way as a BI report, uses those different hierarchies, these Report Designer reports will do that as well. You're going to be using data replication data sets in this particular thing to pull the data out of FSM. And you're going to be using what is called rows and column views to create the rows and columns in a report. So, the row view will dictate what your rows are going to be consisting of and what dimensions are in your rows, where your column views is what's going to dictate what data you happen to have in the different columns in the report. So could be actuals, last year, budget, variance calculations, and so forth. So with that, you can write a report just to give you a simple P&L, but you could also write a report to do a P&L by department, to do, a rollout of department expenses by entity. So you can do one or more than one report, and it will show you those hierarchies and build the reports pretty quickly doing so. It also is an easy, the reports themselves are easy to copy. The row views and column views are easy to copy, and they're very, very easy to update. So what that means is if I have a row view or a column view that I'm used to seeing, and I need to just make a quick modification to that existing data, you can make a copy of that, turn around, make your adjustments to that new column view, and then put it in the report and use it. So it's a very quick and easy way of building reports. Also, when it comes to actually pulling the data out of the system, it's an easy way of actually, you can either run the report, which will give you an output, in Excel or PDF, but you could also preview the report right there, which is going to give you the ability to kind of just see it on the screen even before you run the report. So just a couple of different ways of pulling the data out and being able to select what you want and run the report. So to kind of go a little bit deeper on the overview here, like I was saying before, you have existing charts and hierarchies that are used in a report designer. So what that means is, if you need a different roll up on a chart of accounts, much like a BI report, you may need to create a new chart. You may need to modify the existing chart. If your charts of what you have for your reports, you kind of, you're like, hey, we need to make some changes. Making the changes on those charts will also make the changes on the reports themselves. You could you could add hierarchies for additional reporting. You could actually select those alternate hierarchies when you're running the reports or previewing to give you a different view, maybe on a P&L if you have something consolidated or a little more detailed. So the data, when we run the replication set, you can rerun replication sets in the system. That's going to then provide your report data. So the replication sets run really quick. They update the reports themselves, and then you can go generate the reports and run your data. So it's a quick and easy way of running replication sets to update your data, but also to go and set those on a schedule as well to kind of update. This will update the data models as well, which, if you make changes, you add fields, you can re-replicate the data sets and pull the data. So also, we talked about rows and column views before. You'll probably hear me talk a lot about this because I think this is a lot of where the report designing actually happens. Row views, again, as I was saying before, that's going to dictate what your rows include, whether that's going to be departments, whether that's going to be accounts or companies. Maybe you have a need to build a report with just project expenses. You can do the same thing. Your dimensions are going to dictate how the data is kind of pulling into your rows. Your hierarchies that your dimensions are attached to, whether it's the chart of accounts, that also is going to be so call it modified, or the data itself that's where you're going to define how that data is going to export into the report, and so your hierarchies then become more important, which they always are anyways, but they will become important for these particular reports as well to be able to view the reports and the information coming out of it. At the same time, your column views really dictate what information those rows are going to reflect. So whether it's actual expenses, whether it's a budget, whether it's a year-to-date or a life-to-date balance, whether it's a certain period, maybe I want to do a trend of a 12-month trend, all that gets defined in the column views, as well as being able to go and actually make a calculated field. So the system does has some actually wizard that gives you to do some basic calculations, like, a variance or a percent change. You could also create your own calculations as well within a calculated field. That's going to take the standard fields you have and then make the changes along there as well. So just as a, like I was talking about this before when we were talking about report view, just to kind of bring this back, again, you can make one or multiple dimensions in your reports, and you can actually take those particular dimensions and reorder them. You may want, an account and then have your departments showing for, a particular account. You may want to actually have your departments, your department breakdown, and then have your accounts within the department to kind of show a department P&L. You could actually just build the company and have your company P&L and show different companies in the P&L. All that can be sequenced within the row view as well. It just gives you a lot of options when you're working with your dimensions in your report. We talked about this before too. You can actually copy the reports. You can copy an entire report, and you can copy any of the pieces of the report to build a new report quickly. So to use RW as an example, if I wanted to copy a level group or, and bring that over or build a new level group, I could do that too. The same thing here. I could take a column view that I've already built that is most of the way there. I can make a copy of that column view, rename it, and make my changes, and it reduces the time to build the report. Really, the reports don't take a lot of time to put together anyways, but actually having the ability to copy some existing formats that you may already be using and make a couple of slight modifications and then just change that in the report and generate the report makes it very easy to use and very flexible. That doesn't mean either that you can't use the same row view and column view for multiple reports. There's no, if you have a standard format for a whole series of department reports that you have to create, you can use that same column view format for all these reports. It's not gonna, there's no need to build a new one for every report. We also talked a little bit about the preview function. As you can see here, you have the ability to preview and generate and actually run the report. So it actually has a bunch of different ways to pull data out. And one of the nice things about this is I can actually preview the report prior to me actually running the report. Both don't take very long to generate, but this at least I don't even have to go to my print manager and then pull and extract over the report to take a look at it. I can actually see what it's going to look like right on the screen in front of me. You have to set preview parameters when you initially build a report. You can change those preview parameters, which drive what you see on the preview itself. You could have, if you're making changes to a report or updating, you could have call it a known period that you've been using to tie out a report when you're building it. And then you could always run the report for the current period without even changing the preview. But the preview report just gives you ability to kind of see it before you even run the report. So it's a nice thing to kind of see, okay, this is looking what I want to see. This makes sense to me. I think I'm okay here, and then go and run the report for your whatever period that you're needing. So the second part I wanted to talk about was actually activating Report Designer in FSM. So even though it's not an add-on where it's not extra, it's something you get when you get the FSM suite. You actually have to go in and activate this in FSM. It's really not a bad process to do so. There's 3 quick steps to have to set this up, and then on the last step, you'll submit a ticket with Infor, and they will finish the setup for you. And it's a quick turnaround. They'll let you know when it's done, and you can go in and actually start creating reports right then and there. So the 3 steps really are creating a replication set in FSM, creating a user in Infor to access, so the Infor team can access FSM and create and activate Report Designer, and then you're putting in a ticket with Infor Concierge to request Report Designer to set it up. So under Application Admin, there'll be a report designer setup area, and then you can go in there, click, create replication sets. What that's going to do, once you select OK, is it's going to run. It does not take a long time to run at all. It's then going to create your replication sets in FSM. You can view the results of that by clicking on the results, which I definitely would. Look at your errors. I look at my errors and my all tab to see if I have any errors, either in the status on the all tab, as you can see here, or the errors tab to make sure that I don't have anything amiss here. Once that's pretty much it for creating the replication sets. There's no additional kind of, needs to do so. I will make the comment though, if you're setting this up for your as a client, if you're setting this up for your team, I would set this up in maybe 2 modules, maybe your training environment and your prod environment, if you wanted to give people the ability to kind of train and build reports without having a bunch of reports in prod that you got to clean up. You can, or maybe the test environment, wherever your testing environment is, you can actually set this up in more than one. And you can do both of them at the same time when you put your ticket in, kind of, get it all done at the same time. So once the replication set's done, I just need to go and create a user in FSM. So I would go into Mingle, or have if your IT team's doing this, or if you are the IT team and you're doing this, you can go through, set up a service account for Report Designer. You just got to put the email address in there that you see here, which actually is also on the KB article that we'll talk about at the end. You set them up once the user is created with the 5 rules you see on your screen, and that's really it. You activate the user, and then send the activation, the invitation, excuse me, and that's step 2. That's really all it is. Once you're done with that, you got to submit the ticket with Infor. So the last but not least, you're just going into Infor, getting into their ticketing system, and just putting in a ticket to have this activated, and an Infor team member will come through and finish the setup in Report Designer. Once they're complete, you'll get an email, kind of in the normal ticketing process, that says, hey, it's complete, and you can go and test it. And then once you've tested it and made sure that it works, I would close the ticket. Maybe not until you can create a report and you get data. Once you can get that out of there, then maybe close the ticket. And that's it. So not much to be set. Not much, does not take much to set this up. So the third piece I want to go over is actually the building of a report and Report Designer. I like to kind of do this from the bottom up. If I'm building a report, this is my first report in Report Designer, I'm going to start with a row view. It's the easiest of the 3 things to do. Well, really the second easiest of the 3 things. I'm going to build a row view, which basically indicates my rows. I could, if I have a bunch of other ones, I can copy an existing one. I can build a new one. However you want to get there. You want to build a row view or a column view first, then build the other one. So if you built the row view first, we'll do a column view next. Same thing, you can copy it, or if you need to build a new one, you can. Once you get both the row view and the column view completed, then you actually set up the report itself. The report basically ties together your row and your column view, your report selection. Maybe it's an income statement report. You can set your parameters, and that's what kind of ties everything together to allow you to actually create that final product, like you see here, where you have a report that you can then run and that other users can use. So the first piece that I'm going to go over is actually the row view itself, right? So as we've talked about before, and as you can see here, I've got 2 dimensions. This is a multi-dimension row view that was set up here below. So once you click create and you create the row view, you actually have to create what's called a row list. And what a row list does is defines the parameters of the row view. So as you can see that they're sequential, right? If you saw on the previous screen, they're sequential. So obviously the first one's going to show up first. It's going to divide the report by that. And then the second report's going to show my hierarchy here. And this is my second dimension that I have, which is a chart of account, as you can see here. You can reorder them if needed, but that's how I set this one up. First thing to note here is my dimension, right? I've got to select my dimension, basically telling it, hey, on the general ledger total, I'm going to grab my general ledger chart account in this case. My levels. The starting levels and levels are important because that's what's indicating to the report, hey, my starting level on my report, I want to start at level 1. So if I had a chart of accounts where I had, let's say, my first level is balance sheet and income statement, then my second level is like revenue and expenses. Third level is maybe like inpatient, outpatient revenue of your healthcare. So my level 1 says start at net income and then give me 7 levels down from that. So if I have a really vertical chart of accounts, you may have a lot of levels to get to that bottom level. If you have a very flat chart of accounts, and maybe less, but really you'd want to go in, see how many levels you have in your chart, and then indicate what levels you want here. If you get to the bottom level, is past the last level that you have on a particular branch of your hierarchy, it's going to go to the posting level. So I may see posting accounts. You'll see that on that final example of my report. You'll see that the bottom level is posting accounts. The display value, think of your code as your account number and your description as your account description. So you can have one or the other or both. So if I want to have the code itself, I can go and select code and I will just get my account number without the description. Maybe if I'm doing something, if I've got a department and an account, maybe I just want to see my department number and I want my account description. Then you can set your department as code and then your account as a code and description. The header is somewhat self-explanatory. I can put my header name in there, and that's what's going to show at the top. The column size, if you think about that, that's going to be how many characters you want on your column. So if I have a bunch of really long account names and numbers, I may need that to be a very wide column size versus very narrow. My indent, as you can see at the top right, my indent tells me how many characters I want to indent between my levels. So if I have a cascading report like the one that I built here, you will see I've got two characters in. If I want 5 characters in, I can do that, And last, but well, not last but not least, but along with that, there's a button towards the top called posting level only. If I click that, it's only going to show me my posting levels in my accounts. It's not actually going to give me my subtotals by my hierarchy. It'll just show me my posting level. So if you want let's say you wanted to build a trial balance or something along those lines, you may select posting level only just to see those accounts. And then down at the bottom, as you can see, it defaults totals at the bottom. But if you want, so that's one I know a lot of folks like, including myself. I like to see my net income at the bottom of my report. That's where totals at the bottom is going to bring that and the other totals themselves down at the bottom of my report. So once I've got my row view completed, the next thing I'm going to do is build a column view. So there'll be a little more to the column views. There's a few things to go over here. So as we talked about before, as you can see, same basic setup as a row view initially. I'm creating my column view. I've got my name and my description. I also have my column list at the bottom. This may have a lot more in that sequence. That sequence is going to tell you from left to right what my columns have in them. So, and I can reorder that if needed. But the column views here are what's going to indicate what data is going to be basically represented in each of these columns. And so that's where it gives a little more definition on the column views. Not really a whole lot, but this is there's a little more to it. So as you can see, if I'm creating a column description, I'm going to have 2 different types. I'm going to have a standard and I'm going to have it calculated. My standard is what's going to actually extract and give me data, like a net functional amount for a current period. Maybe in this case, I think month to date actual data. And then my calculated field is where I'm going to tie those two, let's say 2 of the many standard columns together. Maybe I'm doing a variance or a percent change. That's what a calculated column type would be. So column views require at least one dimension to be, to be put in here, right? So if I'm creating a column view, I'm going to need one row, or I'm not going to get anything in here. And with these particular column views, there's going to be a few different pieces of setup at the top, which we're going to go through. One being the the dimension filters, which is that actually is telling me, hey, I want my actual scenario, my budget scenario, my column value as well. That is what indicates, the amount type I'm going to be pulling, but also the period or period range. So um, whether I want it to be current period, last year current period, whether I want it to be a period range, or I'm going to define a period, that's where you would set that as well. And you can hide your columns. That show column and report allows you to hide the columns or hide the column header. Maybe you have some calculated fields that you have in there. You could build columns and hide those and just show your calculated column if you want, if that's what you had, desired on there. So as you can see, one of the most important things on building a column view is going to be this dimension column value setup, right? Um, as I indicated before, the operator cat, this particular is going to tell you, what time period is that the data is going to be, is going to represent. In this case, month to date actual, I'm pulling a current period. I'm not shifting my year and I'm not shifting my period. So if I run this field, it's going to give me whatever value I chose for my current period. You could absolutely change this as well. If I there's under the operator category, there's a bunch of different options. There's a period range, year to date, beginning balance, year to date, ending balance. There's a life to date, beginning and ending date balance, which choosing that is going to then give you different information, right? Based on that, you can shift the years, 1, 2, or more years. You can shift periods, and that's what's going to drive what data is coming out of this particular column. The other important thing is going to be this dimension filter. So for what they have in here for the dimensions, I find scenario being by far the most common thing that I would use this dimension filter for. I want to indicate whether this is an actual expense or a budgeted expense. Maybe I have a budget and a forecast and an actuals. I can go and tell it what particular scenario number that I want to choose. So if maybe I want my actuals, or I want total obligations, I could build an obligation report where I have total, I have my actuals, my commitments, my encumbrances. I can do a budget. I can do all those things basically by filtering by the scenario here. So the last piece that I would do to tie the report together is going to be actually setting up the report itself. So this is where I'm going to tie in my column view, my row view together. Along with that, I'm going to go and indicate, my data selection. Hey, I want, X number of departments, or maybe all departments. I want income statement only, or balance sheet only, or maybe this is a revenue report. I can go and filter that. Filtering it, or the other option would be using the print preview parameters. I can add parameters onto the preview parameters area, or the report parameters area, excuse me. That's going to allow me to then define those additional parameters when I run the report. And so there's kind of a couple different ways of doing that. So first thing I would do on a report before I can even save it is I'm going to define the row and column view. So on the main tab is basically, I'm going to put my report ID, my title, my description of my title, my row and column view. That's going to then tie those column and row views to kind of build the basis of what my report's going to look like. And again, with the nice thing about these reports, it's about as much as work as a click, a search, and then a save to replace a column view or a row view with something that may be more apt to the report that I'm building. So I can always copy the report and build a new report, swap out the column view, and it's like, it's less work than changing tires in your car, right? There's not a lot to it to then create it, generate it, and get a report that's got a different look to it. So once I get the main tab complete, then I'm going to work on my report selection. So the report selection, this defines, like in this case, that my report's going to pull net income, right? And you can see this account level one that's saying, hey, I'm choosing the level one, my net income. If you remember level one for my row view, I had my first row view starting at level one and going down 7 levels. My net income is also starting at level one. So I've defined my report selection and I'm choosing net income in this case. That's going to then always pull net income for this report every time. It's not going to add a dimension or a report parameter where I can go and choose that. This is actually defining that. So if I have a net income report that I wrote, it's always going to be net income. I can come here and define it right here. If I want something that maybe I want, I want to choose departments where, hey, I want a net income report, but I want to actually be able to choose any department I want or any level of departments that I want in the hierarchy. I wouldn't define that here. I would define that on what I'm going to show you next. So, and just as a little note too, I can't add it both places. I can't add a department filter here and a department filter on the report parameter as well. It will only allow me to do one or the other. So speaking of report parameters, so report parameters is actually where I'm adding additional parameters. So not only for the preview, but also for running the report itself. If I, using my department example again, wanted to define a report that was net income, but I wanted to actually go and select the department or select the top level of my departments, I can come here and then, and basically, if you think about your BI report for net income, I can go and choose my parameter there for my departments. The same thing would work here. I can fill out report parameters, which allows me to define the parameters, generate and rerun my report, and then get that refined data. So this is one of those things, again, you can't have report selection and parameters at the same time, but you can define report parameters, and then have that information on as an additional choice when running my report. So the one of the things I have to do though, prior to my first generating of my report, right? I have to go and set my preview parameters. So this allows the report to run that report preview and go and actually see what I'm looking at first. I like this a lot when I'm building reports in Report Designer because I can go and just click over to preview. Hey, is it going to give me data? Is there something, is there some shenanigans going on with my report where it's not giving me a result for some reason? Maybe I missed a parameter. I can come here and just preview it. I'm not running it in the system, but I have to set this up initially because if you don't, and you try to go and generate the report, it just won't do it. But you notice here, I have no preview parameters, or excuse me, report parameters set up. So this is the basic that you get. You can grab a reporting basis. If you have an alternate one, you can swap it out. You can set it for a fiscal year and period. Maybe you have a period has got data and you're familiar with that particular data period, and you can put that in here. You can also hit show structures, and what that's going to do is allow you to swap in alternate structures. So if I have, let's say, 3 charts of account that do various things, I can go and select that alternate chart of account. Even if I don't have the reporting basis that shows that, maybe I don't have it tied to a reporting basis, I can go and actually sub in a chart of account structure and then see that new structure in there. I will let you know, like it'll save for preview parameters, but if you want to run the report without alternate structure all the time, you're going to have to come in and choose that alternate structure. So the fourth piece of our five-part series here is going to be running a report in Report Designer. So there are 2 different ways of running a reports in Report Designer. You can preview it like we talked about. I can go and just take a look at the data. I can preview it. I can use that preview as the report on the screen and, basically tab through the report and see what the values are in that report. Or if I wanted it extracted into a PDF or an Excel, I can actually go and run the report itself and actually have an Excel document, have a PDF that's got the report on it. And they do export nicely, especially like the way they export to Excel. It just gives you a way of kind of, going through. I will tell you, running the report, if I have the whole thing in Excel, is I can then scroll through that, or PDF. I could scroll through the entire report faster. I'm not having to wait for like a page to load, like a report preview. You click next. It's going to take a second for it to load that new page. Or if I actually ran the report, if I need to scan the whole report, it's going to be a little faster because it'll generate the entire thing, and then I have it in PDF or Excel. So as you can see here, by the way, there's your 7 dimensions down in my posting dimension. You can go run the report and preview the report. So I would need to generate the report first, and then once that report's generated, I can go and select the select preview report, and it's going to run for a second, and it's ultimately going to spit out my data that looks like this. Or I can go and actually see see the data in here. I can scroll through here. I can actually look at the information. But again, at the bottom, it'll only go so many rows. Then I got to go and hit next, and then it's going to load that next set of rows. The other option is actually running the report in Report Designer. So there's an example of that same report, albeit for a different period, where I ran it and exported it into a PDF format. So I can run it into PDF, CSV, or Excel, and I can actually go and update the dates. So as you can see here, running the reports gives me that same view as the preview, but it gives me a different formats that I can use. I could still choose my reporting basis. I could still put in my period and year. I could still sub out structures if I wanted to on that report. However, this particular report, I can, I don't have to change my preview to see this report run in a different period. So just as an aside, like that preview, you could actually set it once and forget it. Unless you like using the preview report, then you can go and update the preview parameters. But you could always run the report for a new period and then get the report and then, be able to review it. So the last part really is going to be this part 5, which is actually upcoming updates and resources. So only the one slide here, but I do want to go over a couple of things. The October CU update is going to be a big one for Report Designer. There's a few things that are coming out, 5 exactly, or A through E. One they've rolled out, but I think there's going to be more updates to it, which is the life to date, beginning and ending balances. So initially, when the reports ran out, the beginning and ending balances didn't actually calculate. If you selected, it just wasn't part of the. I don't know if it was not part of the initial APL, if there was an issue with it, but they put in an update in the August CU, so now we get life to date, beginning and ending balances. So that allows us, now we can build a balance sheet based on our life to date balances. And I think there's going to be some additional updates with those life to date, beginning and ending balances, because there were some things I think that still need to be tweaked on that, relating to year to date versus life to date. They're also adding a last replication refresh date on the report summary screen. So think of account analysis. If you look at the account analysis, you get that kind of red, kind of, hey, last GL refresh was, to give you a date and time. They're doing the same thing for the report summary screen. So when I log into that dashboard, you should see the date and time on there that it was last run. So if you notice that, hey, like the rep set was run a long time ago, but I've got new data in there, I've got to go and rerun the replication data set and to get my new data. Also, they're adding some kind of navigation. They're enhancing the navigation on the report. So the report's going to have, save and add. It's going to have save. It's going to have save and close. And just to make it kind of move a little quicker through the different screens, you're not having to go back arrow quite as much. So they've kind of built some more shortcuts in the screen navigation, which allows you to, I probably is going to pick up to speed with being able to set up new reports a little bit. Two of the big ones that I see coming out is this composite or sub-report capability. So the idea here is instead of having a single report that's going to have, like all your information on the one report, they're going to give you the ability to make a composite report and then have sub reports. And those sub reports, maybe you have a report for revenue and maybe you have a report for expenses. And you could actually connect both reports into a composite report. So when you run the report, you get the revenue and expense reports on that same kind of called parent report. So I'm excited to get my hands on that. I think it's and to play with it in in a training environment or production and to see what it can do. The last thing is going to be drill back. So like your BI reports, if you click on your BI reports, they give you hyperlinks. You can actually drill back to your totals and then, drill around to your transactions and so on to your source data. So I don't have to have a bunch of stuff open where I'm looking at a balance here and having to go to account analysis somewhere else and actually go and pull the data to look at it. I could just go directly into it. They're giving you the same drill back capability as well, which is going to be in both the extract, the PDF and Excel extract stuff, and also the preview, where you'll be able to go and drill back to where it's going to open up call it a separate tab with totals, and you can go in and drill in from there. So it's going to give you the ability to drill back on these reports in the same way that you can drill back to your BI reports.
John,
Wow.
sorry, John, to interrupt you, but somebody asked if you could repeat the explanation for D.
For D?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, and again, bear in mind, this is a guy that has seen it, that is waiting, much like yourselves, for the October CU. So if we would have had this discussion in 2 weeks, I'd probably have a more informed explanation. However, right now, if I go back, I'm going to go back to my column view, right? Or my report selection here. Right here. So when I'm building a report right now, I'm building a single report, right? This is my report. It's a generated report. I have one report. Let's say I have this just for revenue, and then I have a second report for expenses, right? Maybe they roll up slightly differently, right? They have to have, by the way, the same column views. So like if I have, budget last year, actual budget last year, variance, year to date, you have to have the same column view for all your sub reports. So they kind of roll up the same way. But if I have one that's for revenue and maybe I have a row view that has 3 levels and then or 6 levels for revenue, 3 levels for expenses. So there's 2 reports, right? But I want to see that on one large report. They're giving you the ability in October to create basically like a parent report and then attach these 2 reports onto that parent report. It'll give you ability to say, hey, I want to select this report and this report, and then save that report, and it's going to give you, gotta go back to this thing. Hold on. What I get for scrolling here. Give me 1 second here. You're going to have a composite report is the word I was looking for. The composite report will tie 2 regular reports up to a composite report. And then that output is going to be both of those reports, that single report for revenue and that single report for expense, on the same report. I don't know if that was a better or worse explanation. So please put in the chat if you want me to do 3rd time's the charm here.
Feedback is that was better. So thank you.
Okay. Yes. I give myself a C+ at best for that explanation. So talk to me in 2 weeks. Send an email. I'll probably have a better answer for that. So the last thing is the KB article 230.903 or 3098. This has all known bugs, known issues, and updates of what's coming on the Report Designer. I'd highly suggest, if you're going to use this for your company, or if you have clients and you need to know what the latest and greatest is. I've been following this Report Designer. So among other things on here, bugs, updates, what's coming up, links to additional training, and I think probably as of now, they probably have the October Infor like training for the October update. They also have, which is vitally important for the October CU, is going to be the updating process for updating Report Designer. So there will be, probably should have put a part 6 in here and went over it, but there is an updating process for updating Report Designer that's in this KB article that once that new patch is rolled out, I believe you have to do this. So you may have done this before to get for the August CU to get it to run. If you haven't, like one of my clients, they basically put the ticket in September, right? So that they have they're kind of hit that September CU, but once that October CU update comes, I'm going to have to go through the process with them to kind of basically put in the updating process to allow Report Designer to update to take these new updates. All that information is on this KB. I definitely would follow that KB. Go in there into Infor Concierge and then subscribe to this. It's a good one. Also too, it's not on here and probably connected to this Report Designer. If you this KB, actually, I'm sure it's connected to the KB, are going to be the Infor classes. They did a couple of really good ones explaining the October CU stuff, and also in the beginning how to put a basic report together. You can actually see some walk through the process of putting a report. It's highly helpful to get a good understanding of kind of the basics of report building. They're like 35 minutes long, not terrible to sit through. They're great, honestly. So I definitely would suggest if you have the opportunity to go watch those as well. Okay. So any questions? So we're here at the end, and I'll open. We got 13 minutes left, give or take. So is there anybody with any questions in the chat? I guess I can click on the chat here.
Currently, there's nothing. Feel free, anybody, to either come off mute or put your questions in the chat. We could probably do the other slides while people are deciding if they want to be brave enough to ask a question.
Absolutely. It will be an answer. Can't promise it'll be a good one, but it will
Well,
be
we
an
do
answer.
have one brave person. So GL Report Designer is based on real-time data question.
That's a good question. And this is where I'm not going to be able to give you a great answer. So initially, my understanding was that it was real-time data and that the replication data sets, when they replicated, it was only if you had model changes, i.e. fields and stuff like that. Come to find out more recently, because I had the same questions and I was digging into this, that no, like if you have updates, you got to run the rep sets. These rep sets take like 2 minutes to run. So it's probably not much more time than it takes to do a refresh, or less time a lot of times to reload your cubes. My understanding is that the rep sets have to be rerun to update. However, I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that because I got 2 different answers. I'm trying to get to that myself. So I know not a great answer. Like I said, it'll be an answer, but it may not be a good one. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So sorry about that, but that's what I know. Sure.
Feel free to keep asking questions. We'll just run through. So we always have our coffee with consultants offering. So if you have further questions down the road, please keep this in mind. It's a 30-minute complimentary session with one of our consultants to get your questions answered or solve a pain point. And you can sign up for that via our website. And then we have a few sessions left for our October series. Next week, we'll be looking at mobile supply chain printer and printer agent issues. And then on the 27th, we'll be talking about continuous performance. And then our next Informative Friday quarterly series will be in February of 2024, which is hard to believe that is soon to be around the corner. So any more questions, please drop them in. Otherwise, thank you everybody for your attendance today. And thank you, John, for presenting. Great presentation.
Sure. Thank you.